Hello, everybody. Welcome back to week 4. This week we're going to be talking about how to build your essay. Narrative essay structure is very much like building a house. It even looks like a house. It has a peaked roof. Look at that. This is a Freytag pyramid design, and you will be building your essay essentially along these paths, where we start with exposition, which is the grounding situation, where we have everything was normal. I was going to school, I was doing this and this, life was going on as normal. And you have the basic background information that the reader needs to know. And you introduce the main characters and basically the main tension early on so that the reader knows what's happening. And then we go to the inciting incident. Notice that star. It's like a spark that lights a fire. It's the thing that sets the story in motion. Things were cruising along, and then one day, boom, something happened. What is that something that happened? That launches the story. It gets more complicated. This thing happened, and then this thing happened, and then this thing happened, and then this thing happened, and then, boom, this really big important thing happened, and I learned. And you wrap up here. I learned from this experience. And that made me realize something new. This resolution is where we have that reflection, that deep thinking that resolves the story and leads us to our theme. What is the main takeaway of our story? Now, I'm going to explain this in our weekly workshop in greater detail, and I'm hopeful that we can draw this pyramid over and over again to analyze how stories are built. Any Disney story follows this pattern. Almost any book you've read follows this pattern to some degree or another. Even if we don't start with exposition per se, we could start with action and then come back to exposition. I'll explain all of that when we talk in our weekly workshop. But you'll find your way through this. I will explain. This week, you're going to be building the outline for your plot. Now, if you are still not sure what plot looks like or what it is, please, oh please, oh please, review chapter 12. Watch the video that Jennifer Schaller, one of our instructors here, put together about plot, and I will also explain in our weekly workshop videos. Here's your module overview, and it's basically telling you what I'm telling you right now, which is you're going to be building a storyboard. Oh, I didn't say storyboard before. Okay, you're going to be building your plot, but you're going to use a storyboard to do it. Storyboards you've seen before probably. They're like panels in a cartoon where you have this action, this action, this action, and it breaks it down into these little chunks. That will help you build your essay as well. And I have models to show you, fear not. You're going to share your storyboards in discussion, give each other feedback, ask questions to make your storyboard stronger, and then you'll submit your storyboard as your support assignment. In addition, for your journal, you're going to be reading some sample student narratives to see how others have approached this topic, and you're going to look at how they introduce and conclude in particular. The introduction and the conclusion should relate to each other. I'll explain that shortly. Let's keep cruising. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. Come on. There you go. There's that pyramid again. All right, so please take a look at my lecture notes. Again, exposition, things are cruising along until one day. So, for example, the front door slammed. I heard my roommate racing up the stairs. You'll never believe what happened, he hollered from the landing. That could be an inciting incident. Or he can be reporting the inciting incident. You can start with action if you want, but we just need to have some background information near the beginning of your essay to get us grounded. You're going to read essays from students. You're going to look at how the authors introduce and conclude. One thing I want to say about conclusions, avoid the hallmark ending. The hallmark ending is everything's rosy and great. They lived happily ever after. There's no real deep thought to it. It's just cliche, right? They lived happily ever after is a Disney wrap up to a Disney movie. We've seen that, okay? We haven't learned anything. We don't want that. The other thing to avoid is the call to action. The next time you do blah, 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 do blah, blah, blah. And that clobbers your reader over the head and makes them think that you're telling them what to do. Most readers resent that. How do you feel about being told what to do? I mean, if your parent comes to you and says, and I told you so, you're going to say, "Ugh," right? Or some other colorful words. You want your reader to be right there beside you and learn along with you. So if you reflect on what you learned and you take it to that deep heart level in your reflection, you don't have to tell your reader what to think. Your reader is going to be thinking with you. They're going to be feeling with you. And therefore, you don't have to clobber them over the head. So stay away from those kinds of endings if you can. You're going to see all sorts of support material this week that will help you out. So our weekly workshop will be today at 3. This is Monday, and tomorrow at 4 at our same Zoom room. If you can come, please do. I will do my best to record the session for those who cannot attend. If you cannot attend, please watch the video and send me an email explaining what you got out of it. It has to be significant. You can't be just like, oh, I watched your video and that was great. And you have to show me that you actually watched it to get the points. You are in better shape if you attend because you can do interactive work with your classmates, and I think you just learn better when you have it in the company of others. We'll do our best with that. Okay, let's cruise. It's the same old Zoom room. We just use the same room for office hours, for all that good stuff. Alrighty, let's cruise on. Your tasks for the week will be to read. We're going to share your storyboards. I'll explain the storyboards shortly. In discussion, give each other feedback before you turn in your final draft of your storyboard. And we're going to be doing a journal on beginnings and endings. Your readings and resources. Always chapter 12. Just return to that regularly. We're going to talk about Jennifer Schauler's Forgetting the Class Snack. And if we get to it, my college education, the 2 sample essays inside that chapter. We'll be talking about that in the workshop. Please take another look at the narrative prompt. This is a PowerPoint that'll walk you through the structure. And here is a personal narrative outline that'll also help you as you're drafting and crafting your narrative. Here are some sample student essays. In addition, here's a collection of student essays. These 2 were written by CNM students. Here's a collection of personal essays gathered by Western Technical College. You can choose any of these for your journal if you so desire. You're welcome to read these 2 as well. And I'm going to be posting some other sample student narratives in the Hall of Fame later this week. You haven't seen the Hall of Fame yet, but there are some sample student narratives that you'll see when we read them. You'll see how they connect to the next assignment and the next assignment and so on. So you'll see how the arc of the class, sort of like that Freytag pyramid, unfolds. As we tell stories in narratives, we do so not with standard, boring, academic 5-paragraph essay style. This has some flair and flavor and creative elements. You may include dialogue. Dialogue is where you have 2 people or more talking. You may quote people in conversation. And if you choose to do that, here's a little guide to help you through it. Dialogue is a really nice way to bring characters to life. That's wonderful. Here's a YouTube video about how to write stronger descriptions and imagery. And you've done a little bit of that. You've done some writing with the senses, those 5 senses that bring the story to life, whether it's your smell, taste, touch, and so on. Again, those descriptive elements bring the reader to your world. And this is a video about how to write a narrative paragraph that allows the action to unfold. You see things happen and you're making sense of what's happening in that paragraph. These 2 PDFs are really useful to you for your journal. It's writing effective introductions and conclusions. We're going to look at that in just a moment. This is a lot of stuff to review, but here's the deal. I want you to bookmark or come back to this regularly because your resources are all here. Everything you need for, I shouldn't say everything, but a lot of what you need for your narrative is posted right here. And it'll be posted again next week, but I want you to be able to come back to this anytime you need to refresh your memory about the steps and tools for writing strong narratives. Alrighty. And you can access your chapters, your OER right here. Just click here and that'll get you into the textbook. and you can find what you need. Alrighty. All right, beginnings and endings. A good story grabs our attention in the beginning. So the exposition bit can be boring, but we don't want that. We do not want boring we want to grab our reader's attention. So this here gives you some ideas about how to begin. And you're going to look at this and think about what styles of beginnings and endings the authors you read use. The introduction should reveal the essay's central ideas or thesis. The thesis is the big idea. What is this about? But the thesis in a narrative can be implied. It doesn't have to be a thesis statement. We're going to go into thesis statements for your next genre of writing, which is the informational report. It can be implied or it can be straightforward. You can say, I learned this thing, and let me tell you how I got here. You can definitely do that, and you don't have to, but you do want to grab our attention. You want to guide the reader to the important ideas and provide relevant background information. That's a lot of work for the introduction, but the introduction can be more than one paragraph in a narrative if you need it to be. But it's important for you to know what your story is about. Now, one thing you can do in a creative piece like a narrative is you can describe a scene or tell an anecdote. An anecdote is a short illustrative story. Here's David Sedaris' Me Talk Pretty One Day begins with, welcome to French class, where you must learn to juggle irregular verbs, flying chalk, and the constant threat of bodily harm. At the age of 41, I am returning to school and have to think of myself as that my French textbook calls a true debutante. After paying my tuition, I was issued a student ID, which allows me a discounted entry fee at movie theaters, puppet shows, and Festiland, a far-flung amusement park that advertises with billboards picturing a cartoon stegosaurus sitting on a canoe and eating what appears to be a ham sandwich. That illustrates a lot, right? First off, it tells us David Sedaris is 41 and he's taking a French class, and it looks like there might be some wackiness going on with flying chalk. What's up with that? And it's a little absurd. It's colorful, it's descriptive. You can also begin with background information. To hold its own in the struggle for existence, every species of animal must have a regular source of food, and it happens to live on other animals. Its survival may be delicately balanced. The hunter cannot exist without the hunted. If the latter should perish from the earth, the former would too. When the hunted also prey on some of the hunters, the matter may become more complicated. Oh, you can address your readers directly. You can do that, but it could be a little weird. See how you like it. You ask me what is poverty? Listen to me. Here I am, dirty, smelly, and with no proper underwear on, and with the stench of my rotting teeth near you. I will tell you, listen to me, listen without pity. I cannot use your pity. Listen with understanding. Put yourself in my dirty, worn-out, ill-fitting shoes, and hear me. That's powerful. You can use comparison, a contrast, or an analogy. Or you can start with a remarkable statistic. Ask a question or present a problem. I am not super crazy about this one. It's overused, and often the questions, unless they're really, really, really pointed and really, really interesting, that doesn't always work. It has to be a really pointed question. You can start with a quote. You can define an important term or concept, open with a paradox, etc. But don't be too obvious. Avoid bald statements such as, in this paper I will discuss the causes of puberty. Don't apologize. I don't really know what I'm talking about. Or don't use overworn words or expressions. Avoid the cliches. I'll let you look at this more closely as you prepare. The conclusions wrap up, right? You want to reflect on what you learned. In an argument, you would have a judgment. I'm saying do not go for the calls for action in this particular essay. You can do that in an argument essay. This is a narrative. This is a general wrap-up of how to write conclusions. I'm going to say I'm going to nix these two at the end here, call to action and question. I really would rather you avoided those in a narrative essay. In a different style of writing, that might be just fine. Do's, you're going to be, you have to have some depth in your conclusion. Don't introduce a new topic or information. That is generally the rule in all conclusions. This is a wrap up and a reflection. You're not starting a new topic. Avoid in conclusion or in summary sort of starts for a conclusion, particularly in a narrative, because this is creative writing. You don't want to have stuffy writing tone and diction. You're telling a story. And don't repeat yourself exactly. One thing that we talk about, a lot of writers enjoy, is the bookend strategy. You can begin with a description and conclude with a similar description, conclude with the main idea. So you want your introduction and your conclusion to echo each other. We talked about that when we looked at the Where I'm From poem, where it begins with a reference to a tree and concludes with a reference to a tree, but they're not exactly the same. It's an echo. Here we have a description of competitive eating in the introduction, and then a reflection at the end about that. Please take a look at these relationships between beginnings and endings. I'm not going to read this out loud to you because you're smart people and you can read it yourself. All right, so you have the student essays here, more sample student essays. Read at least 2 of these. Choose the one that you think is going to be most useful, and you may choose from this whole collection here or the 2 student essays written by C&M students. You're going to read 2 or 3, choose one, and in your journal entry, address the questions. Explain why you chose it, introduce the piece by title and author, explain why you chose the essay, and give us a little summary. What is the essay about? So that if I haven't read that one, I'll know what you're talking about, because I may not have read them all. And if you were to share this with others, would they know what you're talking about? Review these handouts and describe the type of introduction the authors use in one essay. I'm going to change that. Identify the problem or concern introduced in the opening paragraphs. What is the climax of the story? And read the conclusion closely. Describe how the conflict is resolved. What are the lessons learned? How will the author apply these lessons in the future? In a sentence or 2, what do you think the theme is of the essay? The theme is the real thing. What is it really about? What is that big lesson learned? What's the meat of it? Okay, so think about that. If you don't know what theme is, please review chapter 12, and there you go. All right. This is a little bit out of order. This is the thing that's due on Sunday, but you're going to be sharing it in your discussion. So this is a storyboard. Storyboard is a visual way of outlining your essay. And you will have a template to work from. It's right here. You download this on your computer and you can add images to the template. Now I will go through how to do that in our weekly workshop. Here is a sample storyboard. Here's an image, and the exposition is here. So Donnie Martinez wrote this piece. A couple of years ago, a group of friends invited me to go on a backpacking trip in the Pecos wilderness. The problem was that I didn't have much confidence in myself as a real hiker who can carry her own pack up a mountain. Cool. We have background, and we've introduced the main character, the protagonist, and the conflict. She had doubts. So, and it's also the inciting incident. The incident is going up the mountain. Rising action. Besides having to climb a killer 3-mile ascent with 30 pounds on my back, there were other obstacles that we had to negotiate, such as overflowing stream, the result of all the extra precipitation from the winter. And here we are with the stream, there's a picture. So with rising action, we have complications and obstacles. The narrator wants to do something, the protagonist has a goal, but there are obstacles and challenges and things that get in the way. And so there's rising action. So the rising action, she just told you, she has to negotiate an overflowing stream and climbing this big hill. It's a big deal. Climax. Nevertheless, we persevered, and at all, excuse me, and all in tow made it to the top. The views were beautiful and worth the pain. So, yay, we made it. Here we are at the top. Yay! Falling action. Later that afternoon and evening, we sat around a gorgeous fire that our good friend and actual retired firefighter kept going all night. Before we set off, I was a little worried about how I would feel being completely offline, but once there and in such great company, I didn't think about checking my phone, only to take pictures. Reflection. Why is this meaningful? Why does this matter? I was sure that this would be a one-time experience, but afterwards I realized I was hooked. I will never consider myself to be a hardcore outdoors woman, but that initial backpacking trip proved that I'm a lot tougher than I think. It's helped me have a better perspective on more ordinary obstacles I face every day, and since that trip I go backpacking in the Southwest at least 2 times a year. So she has changed. She wasn't sure about herself. She didn't know she could do it. She can. She's a new person because of this experience. Now you'll see some other sample storyboards. You read The Secret Latina last week. Here is a storyboard breaking down the plot elements of The Secret Latina. Here is another storyboard about bird watching, and here's the template. Here are instructions for adding images to the document. And again, in the workshop, I'll walk you through that. You'll notice that the story panel aligns with description and the elements of a story, and so on. I hope you have fun with this. I think this is a useful tool in terms of breaking down the chunks. Now you might find that each of those chunks in the story corresponds to a paragraph or maybe more than one paragraph around a topic. So think about how you're going to use paragraphs, and that video about narrative paragraphs might help you. Just thinking ahead. All right. Now choose a topic that you think is going to be a good story. It can be one from the heart, a really deep one. It could be one of real conflict if you want it to be, but choose a topic that you are willing to share. You're going to be sharing your work in the storyboard, in discussion, and next week we're going to be sharing drafts also in discussion for peer review. Other eyes are going to be on your story. So keep in mind what you feel safe sharing, what you feel confident sharing, and also what is going to be, cool for other readers. You don't want to, be respectful. You know what I'm saying? But also take care of you. All right. So you're going to share your storyboards. Ideally, post by Thursday. I realize you might need more time, but get it in there certainly with enough time so people can respond to you and give you feedback before Sunday, because the final draft will be due Sunday. This is your module wrap up, and you've got a checklist here. So that is your week, and come join me. I'm going to explain plot. I'm going to take apart some Disney films for you using the plot pyramid. We're going to look at Jennifer Schaller's essay, and we're going to start your storyboards. So come join me. I hope you have fun this week. Bye-bye.